You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy, Ott and Paul Stone looking at the college basketball slate for this Tuesday and Wednesday. Let's get right to it in the Kansas Jayhawks. Boy, preseason number one. It's been a little rough for them this year. They lose in Salt Lake City. They continue their mountain swing to Provo, Utah tonight to take on the BYU Cougars, who are very tough at home. Paul, you're looking at those Cougars at home against the underperforming Jayhawks, I guess we could say.
Yeah, I mean, it's, fair to say that everybody's piling on Kansas at this point in the season, kind of writing off Bill Self and the Jayhawks for the most part. And I think it's fair. I mean, it speaks for itself. If you take the name off the front of the jersey, as I think we sometimes need to do as handicappers, this Kansas team just kind of looks like a whole lot of other college basketball teams. It's been well chronicled over the course of the last week, I guess. As Kansas fortunes have continued to dip, the Jayhawks only 18-14 in Big 12 play since the start of last year.
Wow.
So they have not been, the team that they historically have been there in Lawrence. They've lost 4 of their last 5 conference road games, including their last 2 road games to league middle feeders Kansas State and Utah. So not playing that well on the road. BYU, meanwhile, 12-2 at home this year. This line has moved. It opened overnight at some stores at about -1, -1.5. Now BYU up to 3.5. So, that takes a little bit of my strong feeling on this play away, but I still like it, as a moderate play. Give me the Cougars -3.5. Until I see something different out of Kansas, I'm going to expect more of the same.
Keep in mind, the Bet Rivers is one of the few places, more and more mobile betting shops are disallowing buying a half a point from a 3.5, a 4.5 to a whole point. And so they do have that sliding scale. Just click on your matchup and it goes to it. It's something that I like to do, especially on a half to a whole. This is a classic case. I like BYU. I would buy it to -3. And so the reason there is you get a little bit more mileage out of buying that half a point because it's a little bit more of a difference between a push and a loss than it is a push and a win. All right, let's continue as I look at the Big Ten right now, Illinois and Wisconsin. And, well, this is the old revert back to the mean theory here. Well, Illinois up 16 in the first half. Got outscored by 30 to lose by 14 at home to Michigan State. I actually had Illinois in that game. Good thing for live betting and some middle opportunities there. Or the first thing you do for a middle there is you protect the original bet, which it did. But it just zoomed right past that middle opportunity for a loss. Wisconsin, on the other hand, they scored 94. Wisconsin. Now, they do like to have that. This is not your typical Wisconsin team. They play a faster pace, but still, I mean, if you shoot 50% from the floor in a college basketball game, that's high. I mean, I don't know, 10% maybe teams, 15% shoot 50% for a game, especially when we talk about competitive conference games, where they shot 61.3% from the floor in their win at Purdue. Let's revert back to the mean. I know Illinois is another one of those underperforming teams, according to some, because they feel that they have a little bit more talent than what their overall team performances have been as of late. But this is just a classic case. Got to revert back. Whiskey's not that good. Illinois is not that bad. Give me Illinois, who could easily win this game on the road. I like the way Whiskey's playing. Their coach is getting the most out of their roster. But I'll take the Illini here plus the 4, Paul.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a pros. We're going to end up being kind of a pros versus Joes game. I think the Joes are going to look at those Saturday performances, Wisconsin playing so well, and Illinois, jumping out to the double-digit lead and then falling on its face. And I think you're with the pros here. I think it's a good strategy, especially late in the season, to take a team like Illinois off of a poor performance, a subpar performance against a team like Wisconsin, who was hitting on all cylinders this weekend. You mentioned Wisconsin. I think it really is interesting. They used to kind of, just a few short years ago, they were known to, bully their opponents around, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. first one to 60 wins, and they're averaging 81.5 points per game this year, and got, maybe the Big Ten Player of the Year to this point, John Tanji, a guy who played his first several seasons at Colorado State, and then last year at Missouri, he only played, I believe, 8 games due to injury, but he's shooting 40% from three-point land, averaging over 24 points a game his last 7 games. So he's really played well, but I like how you're approaching this game here. Illinois, though, they have been an enigma. I heard somebody a couple of weeks ago say the Fighting Illini, man, that's a great team to take a future to win the NCAA title. And I had no qualm with it because they've got so much talent. So you certainly think they're going to gear it up at some point. But I like your position, taking a team off of a poor performance and getting those points.
Earn a chance at $10,000 in bonus credits with BetRivers Prop Packs. Place NBA same-game parlays to collect player card prop packs and earn rewards. You win based on how your player performs. Log into BetRivers.com or the BetRivers app to place your bet and get your pack. Let's continue on in the Big East. And, Paul, the game that you're looking at, we'll go to Cincinnati here. Xavier hosting Butler. This line was 6.5. It's bumped up to 7.5 to your liking.
Yeah, this Butler team, only 12-13 on the season, 5-9 in Big East play. So they're not drawing up any memories of those 2010, 2011 teams that advanced all the way to the national championship. But looking at the current Butler team, they have played a testy schedule, actually led Marquette and St. John's at the half on the road, and took UConn, 2-time defending national champion UConn, to overtime on the road. So they've been competitive. They're a sub-500 team, but again, have been in the game against most teams on their schedule. They've got a guy from my home state of Texas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area from Trophy Club, one of the better names in college basketball, Finley Bizjack. And he's a three-point artist in his last 4 games, averaging just a shade under 15 points per game. His last 4 games, again, from beyond the three-point arc, 12 of 21. So you like to have a hot shooter when you're getting points. I think the points are just a little bit too much. I like Butler plus 7.5 in Cincinnati over Xavier tonight.
If Paul Stone ever decides he and his better half decide to change their last name, it will be Bizjack, I would have to think. So that is a good one. Finley Bizjack, my man. Here's one that I had circled, but this is, listen, at the time, we are quoting the lines that are available right now at BetRivers. But this would just move too much to me. But I was all ready to take TCU plus 9.5 against Texas Tech. I was going to buy it to 10. And, well, the last few hours, it's moved down to 7.5. Texas Tech won by 38 in Stillwater on Saturday. They've been very good. Really, really good. Top 10 NET. I think it came out there like 13 or 12, somewhere in that range as far as the committees, top 16 seeds. I mean, they've been very, very good. That win at Houston when they lost their best player and their coach early in the game. Gutsy win down in Houston. You know how tough they are at home. But TCU is, Jamie Dixon, 7-7 in the Big 12 this year and have won 4 of their last 5. I think it's a little tricky spot where Texas Tech could come over, but just moving too much there is going to scare me off of that one. So let's move to the SEC and this big Tuesday slate that we have. A lot of options, so you're not forced to, take a bad number like that. Now, if it does go back up to 8.5, buy it to 9 or 9, but it's at 7.5. It probably won't do that. Paul, Mississippi State, listen, this is a historic year for the conference in the SEC. We've been talking about that. Look, the hay has been in the barn since December when the conference games were done. Even a mid-season, SEC Big 12 matchup in previous years would be in February. Well, this year was the SEC ACC in December, and it was 14-2. So they are on pace to have the highest conference RPI in the history of the game. Our RPI has been replaced by NET. It's a little bit outdated, but still, it gives us historical reference. Mississippi State, with that being said, Mississippi State, as a tournament team, they are projected to go to the tournament, has lost 4 conference games at home, at the hump. They fill up that place. That usually, when they have a decent team, which they do this year, is a tough place to play. And I'm trying to figure out why. And one of the things is, I don't know if this team defends like a typical Mississippi State team. So they've already lost 4 at home. Texas A&M comes in here. We used to talk about Houston, the poor man's Houston, kind of Houston light. They bang the glass, just not quite as good at it. Well, they're the best offensive rebounding team in the country this year, and they just love close games because they got a guy, you need a bucket, they're going to find him. So that guard is missed a couple of games during the middle of the season, and they hung in there. But you got to really respect what Buzz Peterson is getting done in College Station. A&M's catching 3.5 at the hump against Mississippi State, who's coming off that emotional win where they turned an 8-point deficit into a double-digit win down in the Pavilion in Oxford and swept their rival in the home-and-home series this year.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, Jimmy, I took a futures ticket on Texas A&M to win the national title at 45-1, cut down the nets in San Antonio come April. They'd have a home court advantage. If they were to make the Final Four, be a lot of Aggies there in San Antonio, but we'll see how that turns out. I'll certainly acknowledge that Texas A&M, they are more vulnerable to scoring droughts than some of the other national title contenders, without question. You mentioned Wade Taylor, the fourth. He is their one guy who they can go to, leads the team in both scoring and assist, averages 15 points a game and 4.5 assists a game, leads them in both those categories, 3 rebounds a game, 1.5 steals. So he is their guy. But like you mentioned, the Aggies, they are a relentless rebounding team. They rank high in all the various rebounding categories. And I think rebounding, like defense, is something that travels well in March. So the ability to win the Battle of the Glass, I think, will serve them well. You mentioned Mississippi State off a nice road win there in Oxford over Ole Miss as a 3-point underdog. Now they return home to play Texas A&M as a 2.5-point favorite. The Aggies 5-2-1 against the spread this year as the betting underdog. Mississippi State, they have failed to cover 6 straight games when cast as an SEC betting favorite. That's tied into their lack of performance there on their home floor. You've got an A&M team, again, getting points on the road. They've played well on the road, have some really good victories. Missouri 16-1 at home. Missouri's only lost this year in Columbia to this Texas A&M team. Give me the Aggies plus 2.5 over Mississippi State.
All right, let's move to Wednesday, and let's go in the ACC. That's right. Nothing screams ACC like Fighting Irish and Notre Dame and the Pony Excess, baby, the SMU up Mustangs. SMU 2.5 at South Bend. SMU got knocked from maybe just on the right side of the bubble to just the wrong side of the bubble with that home loss on Saturday to Wake Forest. I thought it was one of the bigger wins for the weekend. We had all the attention down in Auburn and Alabama. That was a key game for Wake Forest, especially after losing a double-digit lead against Florida State at home midweek in Winston-Salem. So they righted that wrong and got barely on the right side. Wake Forest played well, but also the Ponies played poorly. Shot just 36% from the floor, 23% from 3 to 64% from the line. I think it's a bounce-back spot, a needy spot here for a pretty good team this year. We know that Andy Enfield has brought a couple of different teams already. He's trying to bring his third different program to the NCAA basketball tournament. I like the Ponies to bounce back. I'm going to buy it and lay the juice to -2, which you can do at Bet Rivers against Notre Dame.
Yeah, after Sunday's 15-point home loss to Louisville, Notre Dame, their head coach, Micah Shrewsbury, he cut into the media, kind of ripped them, passionately defended his program and its direction and all that. So, you can tell he's kind of feeling the wear and tear of the season and kind of the disappointment. There has been some talk in the college basketball circles that, maybe Shrewsbury's in a little bit of trouble, but they're not firing him after this year. And the reason they're not firing him, Notre Dame's got their best incoming recruiting class in eons, maybe ever. They have a top 10 recruiting class that's going to be in South Bend next fall. So that's going to get Shrewsbury some time. But SMU's the better team here. Will be interesting to see how that game unfolds on Wednesday in South Bend.
All right, Paul, this is one for a Power 5 matchup, kind of under the radar. Well, nothing about these teams, entering the season that was under the radar. I mean, borderline or right there. I mean, Larinaga brought two different teams to the Final Four. Hamilton's won a ton of games in the ACC at a tougher place to win than maybe Chapel Hill, Durham, or some other places. But, Larinaga's already done, and Hamilton's done at the end of the year. So this one's I've lost a little bit of fire because it's just an odd season, with them having to make us coaching switch and in a lame duck coach here. But you think there's a little bit too many points here. Down in Tallahassee, Florida State laying 10 against Miami.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Miami's current last place position in the ACC and their 6-19 overall record, it's just so difficult to remember that the Hurricanes, they were in the Final Four just 2 seasons ago. So just incredible to think in those terms. As you mentioned, Jim Larinaga, their longtime coach, I think he'd been there 14 years, one day after Christmas, he, at least somewhat surprisingly, resigns. He cited concerns about the direction of college basketball and the current NIL landscape. So they lose their coach day after Christmas, only have 6 victories all year. So it is difficult to underestimate just how poorly the Hurricanes have fared this year. However, in its last dozen games, Miami's shown a little spark. They've kind of reignited. They've shown some fight. Won home games against Notre Dame and Syracuse, and they were competitive in road losses at Louisville and Pittsburgh. In early January, in these teams' first meeting, Miami was a 2.5-point favorite over Florida State. They lost there in Coral Gables by 15 points. Now Miami projected to get about 9 or 10 points by my projections. I think the Canes are playing hard. I think in the rematch, they're going to keep it competitive. I like Miami plus the points Wednesday over Florida State.
Yeah, some of these veteran coaches just not, and you almost wonder about the record breaker this past week too. If your next legendary veteran coach has had enough with the new landscape of college basketball, and that's Izzo, because he's certainly kind of giving you some hints that might be the case at the end of the season. Let's go to where it was the big stage, and it was a lot. Down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, they're camping out. They were giving out shoes to the student section. They're giving out basketball jerseys. I mean, historic day, and I think both teams may have a little tough time recovering from that one because that was a lot invested. How much? You need a visual? Well, just pull up social media and check out the celebration on Toomer's Corner. That was a football-level celebration of the Iron Bowl here. What a performance by Auburn. You got to tip your hat. That was a heck of a game. And, man, they came out, built the big lead. And, boy, Paul, I don't know about you, but when Bama caught up with them in that place, they're about to blow the top off of that building at Coleman Coliseum. I'm like, man, Auburn's in trouble, but a veteran team. They handled it on the road in the toughest of conditions. They couldn't have looked better. Bruce Pearl, he's got... And Auburn, again, creates some distance. They've already lost as the number 1 team and remained at number 1 because they had a cushion built. They've got another cushion at that number 1 overall seed. Again, the committee agreed even before they played this game on Saturday. With all that being said, there's a lot of emotion, man. Arkansas quietly, if you got the better number at 8.5, they just snuck in College Station against the number there. So there was a lot of 7.5s, but there was an 8.5 available out there. But I just think 17 points with tough emotional follow-up here. I'm going to take the Hogs, the improved Hogs. Seems like they, even but losing one of their more talented players, they're playing so much better together and putting out a better product on the floor. 17's a lot, especially for a team that's on that bubble. The latest bracketologies, they're just on the right side, but they are right there. I think they'll be competitive in this spot on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on it. It's going to be interesting to see just how much gas Auburn has in the tank just 4 days after such an emotional victory on their rivals' home floor there in Tuscaloosa. Such a big game. So this is potentially a flat spot for Auburn. They're clearly the best team in the country right now, but especially at this juncture in this regular season, I think you're prone to maybe letting off the gas a little bit and catching your breath. Now, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, But SEC road underdogs of 14 or more points this year, man, they have fared very well.
Yep.
And this Arkansas team, we project Auburn to be favored by 17. They're definitely going to be favored by more than 14. So Arkansas is going to be getting a boatload of points here. You got to expect Auburn's going to be just a little bit, I'd say down, but maybe not quite as focused off that big victory. Plus, we don't know about John A. Broome either. How healthy is he with the ankle, tweaking it late in the game at Alabama? Is he going to play a lot of minutes? Maybe not play at all. Maybe not be quite as effective. I think you've got to preserve him. They've got bigger fish to fry down the road than a home game where they're favored by almost 20 points against Arkansas. So he might see limited action, or could maybe not even play. So they've got to look at the long term. So I'm seeing what you're doing here, and I like your mindset on this play.
All right, let's move along to the Big 12 here, and we referenced it earlier with Texas Tech taking care of business in a spot where they could have been a little bit of lacking in focus against the overmatched Oklahoma State Cowboys. They didn't. They housed them. Now, Oklahoma State, well, you lose by nearly 40 at home. You're humbled, you're embarrassed. You may be able to get the coach may be able to get the attention of their players a little bit more in this spot. It's a pride spot here against Central Florida. Central Florida's been spotty. Sometimes not so good. Sometimes they give people all they can handle, whether it's at home or on the road in some spots there. But a bounce back spot. It's a pick'em right now at Bet Rivers. We're projecting this line as a pick'em. Paul, you think the Pokes may have a little pride here and bounce back?
Yeah, Oklahoma State, clearly one of the Big 12's lower rung teams, no question about that. But kind of as you've mentioned, it's kind of that buy low, sell high strategy, especially as we get later in the season. The Cowboys have been pretty good before Saturday night's debacle against Texas Tech. They've been pretty good at Gallagher-Iba Arena, which can be pretty raucous. They're 9-3 on the season there at home, and they've had victories at home over the likes of Kansas State, Utah, and Arizona State. So they've beaten some teams kind of in Central Florida's neck of the woods, so to speak. You look at the Cowboys' 6 remaining regular season games, and this home contest on Wednesday really shapes up is perhaps their best potential for another regular season victory. So I think that plays a role here. UCF has been good at times this year, but recently not so much. They've lost 6 straight games. One of their leading scorers, Jordan Ivy Curry, averages almost 14 points a game. He missed Saturday's 76-63 loss at Colorado. His status is unknown for this game on Wednesday, but there is at least a possibility, since he missed the last game, that he won't play here as well in Stillwater. So I like Oklahoma State to defeat Central Florida tomorrow night there in Stillwater.
Well, with all of the Bruce Pearl's got to be near the top of the list as far as Coach of the Year. They've got some others out there for sure, but I'll tell you what, maybe the biggest come in a Power 5 program. Missouri was 0-18 last year. They're on pace to go 12-6. They're 8-4 right now, on pace to go 12-6. That is a heck of a turnaround in a historic season for the SEC. Missouri, so we already talked about Auburn. Well, I think Alabama left a little bit on the emotion on that court as well. That was a lot, man. That was just a lot. Missouri's been good. If Missouri is going to get to that 12-6 mark, they're going to probably need this home win against Alabama here. So as much as we talk about Auburn, but not just in a win, even in a loss in a competitive, because to fight so hard to come back, I thought we see a little bit of the flaws with that analytics dominated approach. Sometimes they're reluctant to adjust to how the game flow is going. And also, they're veteran. Their star last year in the tournament, Sears, sometimes can rush a shot, at time, instead of passing for a higher quality shot deeper into the possession. But I just think it's more of there was a lot invested in that game, and even in a loss, I think they might be a little light in the tank No light in the tank for the Missouri Tigers here. They got that home court going. I like Missouri to continue their winning ways. Love what they did in Athens. Georgia needed that game on Saturday, and they were going back and forth. And, man, they took care of it and win going away by 13. I like Missouri here in this spot, a tough spot for Alabama, even after a loss. At a pick 'em is what we're projecting it.
Yeah, you touched on it, Jimmy, but still difficult to fathom that Missouri was 0-18 in SEC play last year, 8-24 overall. But it just kind of goes to show you, obviously, how quickly schools can turn their fortunes around in this age of NIL and the transfer portal. That's exactly what Dennis Gates has done there in Columbia this year. Mentioned earlier, Missouri 16-1 at home. Been very good in Columbia. That only loss a week and a half ago to Texas A&M. And like you said, going to be interesting to see what Alabama has left in the tank as well. You know, that was a big scene with ESPN on hand and just all the pomp and circumstance. First meeting of number 1 versus number 2 between SEC teams in history, just so much on the line. And by the way, your opponent was Auburn. So obviously a lot of energy and enthusiasm expended on the floor Saturday. So I might not be involved here because I'm concerned, Alabama might rebound. But at the same time, I can understand your position that they're going in maybe a little bit deflated and playing a team that's playing a really good basketball on their home floor.
If a college basketball coach tries to sell you that they need time to build their program in years, plural, let me clear my throat. Bullshit. I mean, please. 0-18. Can you be more down than that? How many returning players do they have? How much continuity do they have in their roster? Get out and hustle. Embrace it or quit. Evolve or die. But no, never been easier to flip the script from one year to the next. Missouri, there's evidence in the toughest league maybe ever that we've seen in college basketball. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott. We do it each and every week, the Tuesday, Wednesday slate in college basketball. Good luck, everybody, here from the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.